I grew up in Houston, and a particular school really in Houston that had, starting in elementary school, middle school, high school, very strong program in the city there is, and I had older brothers and sisters, so like even like 5 years older than me, I would see, guys who are kind of future music stars and so kind of idolization. But more than anything, I was hearing all this great music that my older brother and sister were bringing home, all these records, and you know, loving what I was hearing, and then that kind of led me to make my own discoveries when it was my turn.
One might say that if you got here in 1971, you came arguably at the golden age of some of Austin's great music.
Well, I mean, the Armadillo World Headquarters had been open for less than a year, and it was some of the very first jazz musicians I met who were telling me about the Armadillo, and so I got there in short order and heard concerts, and a lot of people in Austin now have heard of the Armadillo and know the lore of it. Sometimes what they, even though it's maybe most famous for Bruce Springsteen and the Grateful Dead before they were at the peak of their fame. There was music every night, and the fantastic thing was, besides all of what was the really spirit of the times, popular music of the day, other nights of the month you might hear some group that you'd have to go to Greenwich Village and on a lucky night to hear them. I heard Sun Ra at the Armadillo World Headquarters, and Dewey Redman, and a wide range. I mean, Dexter Gordon, but that was sprinkled in because there were at the top of the Armadillo pyramid. There was a real jazz lover. Hank Ulrich was made sure that some of his favorite music got there. So it was
You've
great.
arranged, you've done classical, you've taught master classes. Where does all this come from if you came to Austin at such a tender age?
Well, I mean, I was always interested in all those things, and and at some point, I maybe thought of myself as more of a writer than a player, because I think maybe because I mean there were already a number of saxophone players in town at a high level when I got here. There were fewer players who felt ready and equipped to write horn arrangements or things like that. And that's something I had been doing from pretty early on. I mean, a lot of this, I mean, just the things I got interested in, I just kind of like today, I just keep doing them, and I gradually get better at them. I didn't start off with a plan like today, as a teacher or professor, advice about here's the way to get your improvisation skills together, and here's a pattern of study. And after all this time, I have it that more organized. I didn't have it at all organized. I wasn't trying to prepare a musical career at all. That I was just trying to do the things that were like really interesting to me. And as it turned out, what spoke to me first was not, say, memorizing a Coltrane or a Cannonball solo. Would have been a good thing to do, but that, for whatever reason, like I said, I didn't have a plan. I was just reacting to what fascinated me, and what fascinated me was the song structure. The Cannonball record. That tune. Let me try to find those chords on the piano, and and let me try to put together some kind of charts so my friends can get together, not at school but at their house, and try to play through these things that I did my best to transcribe off their record. So somehow that part of it just spoke to me first, and I spent a lot of time just trying to bang them out at the piano and figure them out. And then, that kind of led into writing my own stuff, just because when I couldn't find what I was looking for, trying to replicate a record, it would lead me to something. Hey, that sounds pretty good. So I got more practiced at that, just because I spent more time doing it than I did, say, building, bebop skills or something, which is something I work at to this day. But that wasn't the first thing that got me going.
Let me ask you, John, if you don't mind, how do you keep your inspiration high?
Well, frankly, the students have a lot to do with, kind of keeping me from ever getting complacent because I've had, a lot of those former students, even when they were students, they had things they could show me. It's always a two-way street. And I think kind of a teacher's obligation is not only to bring what you do and what you figured out and what's your area of specialty, but you always want to be prepared to sort of be in some kind of meaningful dialogue with the students. Of course, some of those people who were one-time students are now, in their 40s and have accomplished all kinds of fantastic things. But I think those musicians, even at a young age, have some area of specialty that you've got to admire and respect and try to learn from, because it's such a deep and broad subject. Somebody who shows up who maybe doesn't even have all their chops anywhere near where they're going to be in a few years, man, they know some music. That tends to be a common thread. There's some records they know backwards and forwards. They could hum every solo on that whole record even before they have the wherewithal to play it. They're that deep into it. And anytime that's the case, there's something to be learned from what they know. And it's not, I kind of see it as an equal thing, and it kind of certainly keeps me going and keeps me from feeling like, okay, I figured out everything I need to figure out, because it never stops, which is a great thing.
Since you brought it up, what languages do you speak, or do you read in, or do you want to?
Well, yeah, I speak German well, and I studied it formally and have a degree in it. And anytime I'm in that part of the world, I continue to study it and use it. But I have a functional abilities, especially when I've revved myself up for some travels in Italian and French and Spanish. And I was in Belgium a summer before last, and I was studying Dutch in Belgium. And I like that process. I actually find when I'm really exercising that part of the brain for that language, and like an improviser, getting all that the content and the organization and getting ready to really come out at the spur of the moment, extremely parallel to jazz improvisation.
That's actually where I was going to go. That's thank you for bringing that point up, because I agree with you.
Yeah, it has very much the same kind of study process. Oh, you kind of study structures, vocabulary. It's not good. I mean, you need to listen to it, but that's not enough. You need to get it to come out actively, and you have to practice getting it out actively. And in performance situations, it's very much like, oh, I can express myself in French, not grammatically perfectly or phonetically perfectly, but I can, if I need to say something, I know how to say it. But in conversation, it's more like, well, yeah, but can you play giant steps up to tempo?